looking smarter than ever, Jason. You're looking smarter than ever, Jason.
Oh! What up, jerks? So I've gone through all of the predictions we made, the top three, bottom three, the weekly predictions. I've gone through the bets we've had, and I've got a little special surprise if you stay tuned through the end of this video that I think you'll all like, just so that it's out there. So, off the bat, I want to go through the predictions. Jerry and I, and for 1 week, Alex, made predictions in matchups, and we didn't really pay any attention to the accuracy of those matchups. You'll notice I've got a glass of wine with me because I want to stay classy. But I actually went through and tried to verify the accuracy of those predictions. So off the bat, in terms of the top three, bottom three, as it turns out, Jerry made allusions to 3 or 4 teams, depending upon how you watch the video. But the 4 teams he alluded to potentially being in the top 3 were myself, himself obviously, Daryl and Nick, and Brad, which would mean he would have correctly picked one of those teams. In my top 3, I actually picked Alex, James, and Brad, which would put me at 2 for 3. So I kind of won the top 3, but it's kind of a wash because on the bottom 3, I predicted Zach, Window, and Jason Smith, none of whom were in the bottom 3. Sorry, guys. And Jerry correctly identified the dumpster fire of McMillan's team as one of the bottom 3, in addition to picking Zach and Window, who were incorrect. So we're talking about kind of a wash in terms of top 3, bottom 3. I got one more of the top 3 than he did. He got one more of the bottom 3. So really it comes down to, how do we do week to week at finding out which of you shitbirds would actually come out ahead and which one of you would just shit the bed? As it turns out, one of us was 50% and one of us was 58%. So, average, a little bit above average when you're talking about coin flips here. I guess that's a good thing. The winner. Well, let's go week to week. Week 1, I correctly picked myself, James, Alex, and Zach for 4 of the 5 matchups. I got Windows win wrong. I thought Brad would win that. Jerry started off rough at 1 for 5. The only correct matchup he identified was myself. In week 2, he did clean it up a little bit. He correctly picked Smith, Brad, and Jerry himself. He picks himself every week, by the way. I have one thing I've learned out of all this, which, whatever. I only got one pick right in week 2. Week 4, he and I both correctly picked myself. He also got Jason Smith. So at the end of week 4, if my math adds up correctly, we were actually tied at that point. Week 5, he was not there. Alex stepped in. I did, in week 5, correctly pick 3 of the 5 matchups: Brad, Daryl, Nick, and Jason Smith. Alex, fun fact, went 2 for 5 on his predictions, getting Daryl, Nick, and Jason Smith that week. Back to week 8, the only perfect week in terms of predictions. I nailed week 8. Sean, James, Alex, Daryl, and Nick, Zach, all won. I predicted them all. The only perfect week there was. Jerry that week went 3 for 5. He got Alex, Daryl, Nick, and Zach. And then the playoff week was the last podcast. We only did 6 weeks of the podcast. We both went 3 for 4 in the playoff and Sacco predictions during that podcast, which means his total was 12 for 24. My total was 17 for 29. So, for the inaugural podcast prediction champion is yours truly. Oh, thank you. On from that, we want to go into the bets. There were several bets that were made. I have 2 $20 bets that we need to talk about and 2 slap bets that were made. So first things first, let's get to the $20 bets since they're less saucy in my opinion. The first $20 bet was Zach Hall. Zach Hall, hearing that we had put him in the bottom 3, he, as a baller of a man, says, you know what? I'll bet on my team to make the playoffs at 1-1. And I said, you know what? I'll take that. I mean, he's got a 60% chance statistically, I guess, of making it, but I predicted him in my bottom 3. So I stuck by my statement. We accepted that bet, and I actually have already paid that bet. I Venmo'd Zach $20 because he was spot on correct and I was way wrong. So well done, Zach. The other $20 bet that I saw this year on Facebook was also Zach Hall. Window and Zach Hall made a bet whether or not George Kittle would outscore Will Disley more from weeks 5 to 16 than Will Disley would do at weeks 6 to 16. I'm gonna look that up really quick. My gut says, of course that happened, and of course Window lost that bet. But so it turns out Will Disley didn't play after week 6. So interesting. I don't know how you guys are gonna, shape that bet. But because the bet was that it was the average scoring from Kittle's weeks 5 to 16 and Disley's weeks 6 to 16. Technically speaking, Disley's average scoring, he literally didn't score a point from week 6 to 16. But the only game he played was Cleveland, I think, before he got injured, I'm guessing. So I'll let y'all fight about how that actually went. There were 2 slap bets that are important. Slap bet number 1. And this was the first one. I think it was made at the draft, if I remember correctly. It was a slap bet between Brad and our champion James, whether Adrian Peterson would rush for 1,000 yards this season. Almost 898 yards, needed to average a little bit more. Sorry, James. You may have won the title, but you get a slap in the face. And as a consolation prize for losing the title to you, I get to slap Jerry in the face because Nick Chubb finished with more total points than Todd Gurley, who, by the way, is no longer with the Rams, obviously. Total scoring, it looks like, from the season for them was 237 for Nick Chubb. And scrolling down, looking at my fake watch for emphasis, Todd Gurley, 203 points. So, yeah. So that's the slap bets. I get to slap Jerry, and Brad gets to slap James. The last thing I want to cover, or the last thing I want to reward you guys because you've been so amazing all season. I appreciate each and every one of you. I think this league is very special. It's a very good group of guys. I think the fact that we're all going to meet tonight in about 4 minutes is great. And so what I'd like to do to reward you is at the end of this video, I'm going to post the video of me getting slapped and the slow motion video after it. So you can just play that on repeat if you want. Thanks for a great season, guys. See you in season 12, and I'll talk to you in 4 minutes.
The shit out of the Dolphins.
Don't hit him too hard. I don't want him to have to stay here tonight.
All right, you ready, Sean?
No.
Here we go. Don't hit me on the backswing.
Oh!
Kicking the shit out of the Dolphins.
Don't hit him too hard. I don't want him to have to stay here tonight.
All right, you ready, Sean?
No.
Here we go. Don't hit me on the backswing.
Oh!